Hi everybody, it's Vervain. Happy Halloween, blessed Samhain, and welcome to my tea table. So, I've never talked about this before because I don't like talking about things that I can't defend. And because I've grown up in 21st century America, I've been kind of trained to believe that my personal spiritual experiences are not valid experiences, or not that they're not valid experiences, but that they're not, it's not a valid data sample. It's not a valid piece of evidence because it's just something, it's phenomenological. It happens in my experience. It doesn't happen in a way that you can measure or quantify necessarily. I haven't really talked in any sort of public way, although I've talked about this privately with friends, I'll talk about it with anyone who brings it up in person, but I haven't published anything about my paranormal experiences, because honestly, I'm scared of how it will make me look as a trustworthy source of information, because I'm afraid that having paranormal experiences makes me seem less skeptical. This smoky quartz is so beautiful. So beautiful. Mesmerizing. As I was saying, today, in honor of the season and the dearly departed, I thought I'd tell you my ghost story. So, I know I always say that I'm not sure if I believe in ghosts, and what I mean by that is that I just don't believe in anything blindly. I really try not to believe in anything just because I want to. So what I'm saying when I say that I'm not sure if I believe in ghosts is that I have experienced strange and difficult to explain phenomena which could possibly be explained by ghosts, but I'm aware that ghosts is not exactly an explanation in itself and demands further explanation, and I'm not prepared to defend that, although I have several theories about what ghosts might be, or what, I'm not even sure I want to call them ghosts, but things that I have experienced in ways similar to classic tales of ghosts, or tales that I've heard from others of ghostly paranormal experiences. So I've had experiences of ghosts. I've driven ghosts out of people's homes. I've communicated with ghosts. I've seen a ghost. But I'm not prepared to defend those experiences as anything that happened outside of my own head. But just because it happened inside my head doesn't mean that it wasn't in some way real, and that it's not a valid experience, and that it's not worth examining further and engaging with. I learned the white rose is a Victorian symbol, and often in Victorian homes, in the dining rooms or the parlors, you'll find in the ceiling that there are white rose plaster designs or painted designs. And it's silence, or it means essentially, what happens under the rose stays under the rose. And also, the white rose is symbolically akin to the white lotus in Eastern symbolism. I see the white rose as inviting the appropriate circle of souls to join us at our tea table, and to have a listen in on the story, and to keep an open mind while listening. If you're going to get the most out of anybody's story, and I mean this when you're listening to anybody ever, if you're going to have compassion, if you're going to experience their passions with them, compassion, then you have to be willing to suspend your disbelief and tap into everything that you believe they are trying to communicate. You have to give them the benefit of the doubt. When you are tempted to misunderstand, you have to try to really understand, and to really listen, and to really experience where the other person is coming from. And so I'm asking you to do that with me tonight, and to suspend your disbelief for the duration of my story. And when it's over, take a step back, assess, and decide whether you believe me or not. And I mean, I'm not lying. I don't think I'm making things up, but that's always possible, that my subconscious is making things up. But then again, like I said, I think that's worth examining. I think that's worth engaging with. I think it's worth knowing what causes all of these experiences in all of these different people who have similar experiences with ghosts and other paranormal activity. So without further ado, I'm gonna just get to it, if I can even say that this far in. So, for the sake of the story, I'm also going to suspend my own disbelief, and I'm gonna stop making disclaimers, and I'm not gonna make a disclaimer every time that I say my dad's house is haunted. So we'll start there. My dad's house was haunted. My dad doesn't live there anymore. It's probably still haunted. I grew up in a small suburb of Los Angeles in Southern California, and my mother lived in an old Spanish revival house at the top of a hill. And I think my mom's house was actually haunted too, although the story on that is, I understand that story less well. I was younger when I had those experiences. I was way less well-read and into the whole witchy business stuff. Like, I was not into... I mean, I was curious about witchy things. I was just starting to learn about tarot when I had those experiences. I did have an experiment. I did experiment with an ouija board with one of my friends at that house, and I can talk about that later. And then some of my other friends talked a little bit about seeing dead people. Should I make another video about my paranormal experiences at my mother's house growing up? Thumbs up if you want me to make that video. Oh, and obviously subscribe so that you know when it comes out. Yeah, so we all lived up there at what I call my mom's house, and then my parents got divorced, and they still got along well. They wanted to not make it harder for each other to share their children, basically, which includes me and my brother. Eventually, after moving through a number of apartments in the town, my dad settled into a house, also Spanish revival, but later, at the bottom of the hill. So, walking distance from my mother's house, which was highly convenient for me and my brother because we could just go back and forth whenever we pleased. It was great. And I never had to learn to drive until much later, until I moved to Texas. Then I needed to learn to drive real quick. Comment if you want me to make a video about learning to drive. That's a story. Guys, I feel like I just need to make more videos. Like, I talk about making so many videos that never get made. Like, I still have not made, what has it been, like almost a year, and I still have not made that video about house hunting and manifesting the citrine palace and the crystal grid and everything that we did to make that happen. Like, I need to make that happen. And I don't know, I feel like I want to make more time for YouTube because I really love what happens when I put myself out here and you guys come out with your stories and your experiences, and I learned so much from you guys. So I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. I love you. So pretty much right away when my dad moved into this house, I knew it was haunted. And my dad's girlfriend, who for all intents and purposes, we'll call her my stepmom, she also is very, I wouldn't call her very superstitious. She's with my father, who's like all logic and science. So she can keep up with him and she can keep up with me. And I feel like I'm a lot of logic and science plus a dash of validation for phenomenological experiences. So my stepmom could also sense that there was some spirit there, but she didn't really seem bothered by it. Like, she would talk about it like, oh yeah, there's something there. Like, she was maybe a little freaked out about it, but like she realized that it wasn't harmful and that it wasn't like negative and that it didn't have any ill intention. Um, and that was always kind of like, I was just uncomfortable around the energy that I got because, I don't know, I had never lived with a ghost before, really. More on that later again, because I'm pretty sure there were actually ghosts at my mom's house. They were just way less active and like way closer to peace. But as far as it affecting my everyday experience of the place in which I lived, I had never lived in a haunted house before. I had never lived with ghosts. And at my dad's new house, I found myself living with ghosts, living in a haunted house. At first, mostly it was just my first experience of her was that when I was sitting in, so this, it had, the house had lots of French doors and like French windows. I don't know if you call them French windows, but like floor to ceiling paned glass. So, you know, lots of panes, no big pieces of glass really, but like almost every wall of the house was see-through. And the front door, there was this gorgeous garden out front with a fountain and a pathway and just lots of flowers and a little patio where we often eat dinner out there. And then there was the door with the doggy gate. And then that came into what was the dining room. And it was like just this big rectangular room, dining room, and then my dad's kind of like office desk was set up at the far end of that room. And then behind it was the kitchen. And over here is the hallway. I'm like mapping this out on my body for some reason. This is like a little square, like foyer hallway that opens up. Anyhow, so if I'd be sitting in the dining room, there's French doors. The front doors are French doors, see-through totally. And then you can there's like a big archway into the living room, which has all glass windows. So you can see through like the whole front of the house from the dining room table. And sitting there at night, I would see like just flashes of like, it was like white fabric like this, like a woman in a white dress, just like running by the window in little spurts and little flashes, and always in the corner of my eye. And I always, you know, when that was my only experience of it, and I was just kind of observing that to myself and kind of keeping it to myself, I kept it to myself because I was like, I'm just seeing things. Like, it's probably just, we live in a weird house, the electricity flickers, and for whatever reason, I only notice it in the window, like in the reflection in my glasses or whatever. Because, like, it's especially bright on my eye or something. You know, and because I wear glasses, like, who knows how many reflections I get in my, or like how much glare I get in my life. And how that affects my experience of the paranormal. So I finally said something because my stepmom finally said something. And I don't remember what she said, but I felt safe to be like, oh yeah, I've had like weird feelings and experiences and like I seen things. I'm like getting so nervous, and I'm getting nervous because it's October, the veil is thin. I don't know who's listening. You know, usually this house I wouldn't consider haunted, although it definitely has like a voice, it definitely has like a spirit, and it has it has like a heart, this house. But I feel like that's mostly like the spirit of the rose, and I'm mostly not concerned with that having any interest in our little paranormal conversation. But I just feel like it's October and you never know who's wandering, and like this is how you can tell I actually believe in this shit, right? Because believe means to behave as if you believe, right? And if I'm getting freaked out while I'm telling a paranormal story in candles and in the dark, It's because I kind of believe it, or I just believe it. So I don't like the fact that that might make me look like I'm not a skeptic, but I've experienced what I've experienced. I'm open to other interpretations of my experiences, but I don't have any yet. So, or at least whatever the cause, the best way to describe my experiences at this point is ghosts. Whether a ghost is an imprint of a dead person or the actual will-possessing remaining spirit of a deceased person, or just like an energetic being created by lost chi or whatever. I don't know what a ghost is, but we'll call this a ghost. So I would just see these white flashes every now and then, all the time, because I would do my homework at that table, and we'd eat at that table, and we'd just like hang out and play games at that table. Like, that table was the hearth of that home, the heart of that home. It was the center of the home. And you're surrounded, you can actually, I said you could see through the whole front of the house, but you could also see through an archway down into a little foyer, and that also had French doors looking out into the back, onto the driveway, and that's where you would go out to go to the garage. So depending on which way you were facing, and if you were facing the right way, you could actually see through both of those sides of the house. And I always felt like it was going like around, but not like all the time, it was just like, I don't know, and I always got the vibe, just like the feeling, and maybe it was just because it was white, and like maybe all ghosts are white, I don't know. How many ghosts have I seen? Like one, basically. Most of the other like spirit beings that I've experienced, I've not experienced visually, but this one I did, and this one visually was the first way that I experienced her, was just in these flashes around the house. And then the second way that I experienced her was in patches of cold. And like, I know it's an old house, the circulation's not the best. Yeah, there are like wells in the house where it's colder. Like, the kitchen was always freezing, but that's because the windows didn't close all the way, and the door didn't close all the way. And in old houses in California, you find this a lot. There's like doors and windows that just don't close all the way. And it's not a big deal because you live in Southern California, and however cold it gets or however hot it gets, you can handle it. So maybe there's a totally mundane explanation for the cold patches that I would find in the house. But, I would find the cold patches in the air, and often this would be in the stairwell, so like in the bottom of the stairwell, where that's like the foyer that I was talking about that goes with the French doors off to the back, and then it also opens into the living room, and it opens up into the dining room. So it's just this little square foyer, but it opens up to the whole rest of the house. But it's sunken. It's at the same level of the living room, though. And the living room never really got cold patches, but the foyer got very cold. And again, maybe that's just because there's a door there, and it's a little sunken compared to the dining room. I don't know. But Truffles, the dog, there was a little dog that belonged to my stepsister. Yes, I kind of have a stepsister. I don't talk about her a lot because it's not a happy story and we're not in touch. But I do kind of have a stepsister. And at this time, she was living in this house, in my dad's house. And I think actually the ghost did maybe attach herself to my stepsister. And I wonder if that's something that's worth looking into, like, now. Because she's not in a good place. We'll just say that. She's not in a good place. After she left, I never really experienced any more ghost stuff, but that was kind of, I was in college and I was just coming back to the house every so often on summers and breaks. And I wasn't living in it. Yeah, so Truffles the dog would bark at different spots in the house. Like he would run right up to one particular spot, and it was often like a little cold patch. And he would just bark at it. And like there was nothing physical there, nothing and nobody. And often also this would be like not even when the ceiling fan was not even on. Like once we thought that Truffles was just like barking at the spinning ceiling fan because he ran into my stepsister's bedroom and like jumped onto her bed and just like started running in circles on the bed and barking. But then he did this like many times later when the ceiling fan was not on. He would just all of a sudden just run in there and become obsessed with something that was like in the center of her bed. But it was like above, like you could see, because Truffles is like looking at where he thinks this thing is and is like running around it. And I don't know, I'm not a huge pet person, maybe you can tell, but I do trust the wisdom of animals. It's clear to me that they are more in touch with the subtle world and the natural world than we are. We are too, I feel like so many of us humans are so separated from the subtle world and the magical world and the natural world even. And so when an animal senses that there's something there, you can pretty much know that there's something there. And you can do some investigation to see if it might be the usual suspects, like food, another animal, but it wasn't those things. And my stepsister got really freaked out. Like she really felt like something was, I think, like visiting her in the room. And I was never close to her, and I never really knew what her specific experiences with the ghost were, but I know that she was definitely uncomfortable with it. And I think she was just kind of like freaked out by spirits no matter what, and so she wasn't really open to it being a positive experience, whereas I'm more like, okay, there's a spirit in my house, what does it want? Let's investigate. I think she was more like, oh my god, there's a spirit in my house, I have to get rid of it, this is terrible. I don't think that she, the ghost, intended to cause fear or harm, but I think that that was all that my stepsister was prepared to inhabit in reaction to a disembodied spirit in her living space. And I think that her fear, in a sense, invited it closer. And I think that that made her more uncomfortable. I wonder if that might not have been one of the things that kind of drove her over the edge. And I remember once, and I was probably like 16 at the time of this all happening. And like picture me, blonde hair, blunt cut to here with bangs and braces and like Rita Skeeter glasses and orange lipstick, sitting at a table in my fishnets and go-go boots, shorts and Hawaiian shirt, doing my geometry homework, seeing ghosts out of the corners of my eyes, wondering if I'm going crazy or if I'm living in a story. Little did I know that I'd be here telling this story all these years later. I'm 25 now, so this was probably like 10 years ago. Oh my god, I'm so old. Time goes so fast. Kids, appreciate every moment. Live into every moment. Especially every moment that you don't have any real responsibility. Like, really appreciate that and enjoy it, because it never happens again. You always have responsibility for your actions once you become an adult. And you never get to fully play again. I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm just trying to tell you to really enjoy every moment. take a break every now and then. Don't be so hard on yourself. Okay, so I was 15. I'm sitting at my dad's dining room table. My stepsister comes out of her bedroom, which at the time is off the dining room, and complains that there's like some sort of spiritual disturbance in the room. And I can smell that she's burning sandalwood incense, and I'm in high school and I have no idea what I'm doing, and so all I know about magic is what I've read in books and on the sides of incense packages, and somewhere I've heard that sandalwood incense attracts good spirits. And I mention this to my stepsister. I say, oh, you know, I've heard that burning sandalwood incense, which I've noticed you're doing, is said to attract good spirits. And I thought that that would calm her nerves, because, like, you know, keyword good in the phrase good spirits, the keyword is good. And it did not calm her or ease her mind. It freaked her out because she heard the keyword spirits, and she just, I think, just wasn't comfortable with that. I think I remember trying to calm her down and talk her down and be like, hey, yo, like, let's deal with this rationally. Like, I definitely didn't say yo at the time. It was way more, like, put together. But I tried to tell her, you know, if it's a good spirit, there's nothing to worry about. You should just ask it what it wants and see what happens. And she was like, oh, I'm freaked out about it. And I was like, well, if you really want to leave, like, you can ask it to leave, or you can burn some sage, or you can tell it to leave, or you can have me come and talk to it, or whatever. But, like, I think you should just get over it. And, you know, maybe she was experiencing something worse than she ever let on. And so then what finally did it for me, and maybe this is kind of anticlimactic, because I can't even remember why it was that I needed to go upstairs. I know there was one time when I knew that I needed to go out to the garage. I knew that I needed to go out to the garage because I'd left the garage light on and I had to turn it off. And I knew that to get to the garage I had to go out the back door, which meant going through that foyer, and I could, like, sense something standing there, just, like, waiting to be recognized. And I really think that mostly the spirit just wanted to be seen and acknowledged and, like, had space held for her. Like, I don't think she wanted more than that. She never really caused a serious disturbance other than, like, cold patches and visual flashes and what I'm about to describe. But it wasn't like, you know, she wasn't, like, knocking things over or waking people up in the middle of the night, unless that was happening to my stepsister. That never happened to me. Although maybe that happened to my stepmom. I'll have to ask her. And, you know, I could sense that presence waiting for me in the stairwell, and I didn't want to go through it, but I knew that I had to, so finally I just, like, you know, I got up. I just was like, you know what, I'm a strong, independent witch, and I can turn any light off that I damn well please, so that's what I'm going to do. So I just put my fighting face on, and I walked through that extremely cold patch in the foyer, which, like, that was maybe the first one that I, like, experienced, and especially because, like, I had already sensed a presence there. I don't know, like, in a sense of waiting. Like, when it was that cold, it felt like it was, like, something was enveloping me, and I just got through it as fast as I could, and I went and I turned the garage light off, and I came back in the house, opened the door behind me, and I walked back into the dining room. And it, you know, it wasn't a big deal, I left it behind me, but it just, it made me uncomfortable. And, you know, as much as I put on a good face and I tried to be like, oh, spirits are fine, I'm okay with spirits, I'm comfortable with spirits, like, that was me putting on a good face. Like, I was still, like, I still was on edge, I still kind of had chills. I hadn't dealt with this before, I wasn't comfortable with it. I didn't really, I liked the idea of it, and I knew that I could train myself to be comfortable with it, but I wasn't yet. I was on edge, and I was very nervous, and so bear that in mind. And then there was this one other time, and I think I was home alone, or home alone maybe with my stepmom, but my dad I think maybe was out of town, and my stepsister, I don't know if she was out or with a friend or out of town or in rehab, or I don't know where she was. But I think I was alone in the house with my stepmom. And probably like I had the car keys or some guitar picks or something that needed to go up to my dad's room, or maybe I'd borrowed one of his jackets or one of his Hawaiian shirts or something. And so for whatever reason, I needed to go up to the third floor, to the master bedroom. And the house was a 3-floor house, but the second and third floors were just one room each, pretty much. The third floor was just the master suite, and the second floor was just an open room that was mostly my stepmom's sewing room, but it also then later had a bed in it, and was my stepsister's bedroom, and then it was a guest bedroom, and I stayed there. And anyhow, so but that room is the whole second floor, and then the master suite is the whole third floor. And the master suite also had like all my dad's music stuff was set up there. So if I was ever going to play the keyboard or record any music, I would go up into the master suite. So it wasn't uncommon for me to go up there. And I wasn't really like I wasn't freaked out at this time. But it was a dark house. My stepmom doesn't like to keep a lot of lights on when she's just there alone in the house. Just what she needs to work by. She does a lot of quilting, embroidery, that sort of thing. She made my beautiful tarot quilt that you've seen in some of my videos, if you've seen any of the videos I make on my bed. Oh wow. Let's put my light on. I don't know what this would be like. I've never filmed this way before. We're just gonna go with it. So as you might have noticed, it's a different day. I'm wearing a slightly different outfit. I'm wearing the same dress, but it's colder in the house today. So I'm wearing my ponchos and things. And that's because yesterday, last night, yesterday morning, I was filming my ghost story for you guys. And literally right before I got to the part where I saw the ghost, my camera just died, my phone died and cut out. And I'm not gonna pretend that that's some sort of paranormal circumstance, because I know that I started filming when my battery was at like 20%, and that I filmed for like 50 minutes. So, it's fine. But I'm gonna try and pick up where I left off last night and finish this story for you guys. So I'm headed upstairs to drop off this thing in my dad's room, and this is like seriously all the context that I remember, but I have this thing in my hand, and I go through the foyer, and it's like a little cold, but it's fine, and I feel fine, and I go up the stairs, and like the more stairs that I go up, the more I start to feel like something's waiting up there. And I get to the landing, which is like the second floor, I guess, and I like paused, and I almost like went back downstairs, but I didn't. I decided to keep going. And so I climbed the other half of the stairway to the third floor, to the master suite, and I turn in. A lot of the doorways in this house didn't have doors, they had curtains, and so I opened the curtains into the master bedroom, and I just remember seeing, and it wasn't, I'm going to try and explain this as best I can. It wasn't like seeing something like somebody standing right in front of you. It wasn't like I saw somebody standing there with my eyes, and like I will tell you somebody was standing there. It's like I was seeing with my mind's eye an image of the spiritual plane or the subtle energetic plane overlaid on the image processed by my optical nerve of the material plane, which I was viewing with my eye. And so it wasn't like light was hitting this solid figure of a person and bouncing off of it and into my pupils and causing me to see that person. it was like my imagination somehow, I don't know if it picked up on something or if it created this, but super, super vivid. It was just like I didn't even have my normal vision for a moment. I could see the room, but it was like I wasn't seeing it through my eyes. It was like I was seeing it through my mind's eye again. And with this overlay of this woman on it. And she was actually, you know, very much like this, not this with all the ponchos, but very much like this white dress. And she was just standing there. And I just remember, I don't know if she was like standing or like floating a little bit, but she had, it was just like her arms were slightly out to her side and her hands open and down, and her skirt was like, you know, in like a roughly A-line shape. It was just like floating a little bit, not like, you know, like just like as if the windows were slightly open. And it was almost as if in the image in my head, the windows were open, and maybe they were in real life too. Like I said, it was Southern California. I don't know. And she had, you know, long hair that was, again, just ever so slightly, just like floating in the breeze. Just like a gentle undulation to her form. And it was just like she just stood there or floated there, one of the two, you know, I can't say really. And just like, I don't even know if her eyes were closed or if she was staring straight at me, but she was certainly like facing me directly. And it was just like, see me. Like, I'm here. Don't deny me. Don't ignore me. We don't have to be friends, but don't ignore me. I'm here. And, you know, she didn't say anything, but like it was as if that was what she was here to communicate. And I just remember kind of like seeing all that and taking all that in and processing it and just setting down the thing that I brought to take upstairs and turning around and closing the curtains and walking back downstairs and then being like, hey stepmom, can I tell you something? I seen a ghost. Or I was probably like, because it was a thing that we talked about, I was probably like, I saw her. And, you know, that's like any other memories that I have around the situation have kind of faded away. That one moment is really what stuck out to me most. And then, of course, the experience of the cold patches and all the white flickers of fabric around the house. You see, like, this motion, like, I do this motion when I think of those white flickers because it was like she was circling the house. And I don't know, like, I never saw somebody just, like, standing outside the house. It was always like, shoo, shoo, shoo. Well, I feel better having told that story. Okay, so let me know, was that story totally disappointing, or was it all you hoped for and more? If you do want to hear more stories of my paranormal experiences, either the ghosts at my mom's house, or my experiences with ouija boards, or my ghost theories, let me know in the comments down below which of those you'd like to see, and of course give it a thumbs up for more videos like this. Subscribe and hit that little alarm bell to be notified every time one of my new videos comes out, and maybe stick around for these bloopers that I'm probably gonna include and leave in. Okay, I feel like that is so much better. So much better. Okay. So, now that we're here, now you can see candle. There's 2 full cup of tea on the table. No, yes, this empty, this full, this full. My sleeve about to catch on fire. Okay. Guys, if I die in this video because I catch fire, make it go viral. It's like my dying wish. My silly dying wish.